Welcome back to another episode of Contractor Secrets with Trade Business Success. This podcast is for Aussie contractors who are on a mission to scale their business, income, and life. My name is Troy Larkham, this episode's host, and today we're going to be talking all things fixed pricing, or more specifically, the objections around them, because when it comes to the fixed pricing side of things, there tends to be a lot of skepticism and a lot of false beliefs and whatnot around it, and whether or not it truly is the better pricing structure for your business. So today, I really wanted to just dive in, tackle these main objections, because at Trade Business Success, we know how important and powerful fixed pricing can be for your business in terms of building a successful and profitable trade business. But rather than me sit here and lecture you guys and talk about all these objections myself, I thought I'd bring on the man who probably tackles more of these objections daily than I probably do over an entire year. And that man is Marcel Donnelly. So Marcel is the CEO of FlatRateNOW, which is an all-in-one fixed price and quoting solution for trade businesses that helps them boost profits, streamline their sales processes, save a bucket load of admin time, provide a better service and experience for their customers, and ultimately make more money, which is everything we stand for here at Trade Business Success. So with that being said, let's dive in. So how are you going, Marcel?
I'm very well, thank you, Troy. Thanks for having me again. It was the last time we were on, it was really good and really exciting. So I'm really pleased that you invited me back.
Yeah, I think this is it's always good to bring you on, because obviously we have the knowledge and skill set that we have, but it's also great to get experts in that are so niche down in their field. You know, we talk about a lot of topics, but you're day in, day out in the fixed pricing flat rate world. So this should be a good interview of busting some of these objections and whatnot. And yeah, we'll go from there, right?
Let's hope that I can bust some of these myths and reduce the skepticism out there. It is still interesting that there is still a lot of skepticism around about the whole idea around the upfront pricing. So yeah, I'm really excited to be able to provide some of the experience and some of the knowledge that I've learned from dealing with trade business owners that have used our software and also do implement that in their business and who have seen success through that approach.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive straight into it. So first things first, I've got to ask, what is the biggest objection that you come across when it comes to flat rate or fixed pricing?
I got to say that the biggest objection that we find is that business owners seem to think that upfront pricing or fixed pricing, however you want to call it, that it's set in stone, that you can't deviate from the plan, which is wrong, because the idea behind either an upfront pricing system or developing pre-built tasks to help improve the way that you quote on site is about guidance. So if you arrive on site and you take a look at the job and you see that, let's use the hot water unit as an example. If you arrive on site and you've got a pre-built task for an 80-litre hot water unit and you've got, humour me, 3 hours of allocated time in your pre-build. When you arrive on site, you've got your headings, you've got your descriptions, you've got your allocation of time and the materials there. It's about when you arrive and you take a look at the job and you see that, okay, great, this is a standard type of install. I can leverage the pre-built task that I've got. Or I can't leverage it because it's actually a difficult install. There's 10 flights of stairs, there's no lift, you got to carry the unit up and down the stairs yourself. So by looking at the pre-built task, you should adjust it and increase the allocation of labour for that job, because you're going to spend more time on there. So that is most likely, it'd have to be the most frequent objection that we hear from business owners that say, what if the job's more difficult, or what if the job's more, but it's easier. And it's about ensuring that you understand that it's all about guidance and tweaking as necessary, because not all jobs are the same, but they all have a very similar framework around them.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into a secondary component where, when it comes to fixed pricing, it doesn't necessarily have to be the fixed price of the entire job. Especially for more complex projects, it's the tasks involved of that project. And we like to look at it from a component of, how you should really be looking at fixed pricing, whether it's from the full job or from a task perspective, is really, well, how often do you do this job? Are you familiar with this kind of job? And how complex is it? If it's, a simple hot water install like you're talking about, that's something that you can largely look at that from, I can look at this as a job perspective. Whereas you've got multi-stage project, or there's a lot of different variables involved in a project. Well, that's when you can start breaking it down into its individual tasks. For example, you're probably not going to have a fixed price item for a job of installing 6 fans, but you have the task of installing 1 fan, considering the labor, the materials, the cost related to that, there's your price. It's breaking it down to that more micro level. So it still makes sense. You're still making the profit and the money that you want to be making, but you're getting the best of both worlds really there.
Yeah, that's right. And when you're taking a look at that, so if I use that example, we've got a task that's designed for installing one ceiling fan, but you walk into the property and they want 6 of them. One of the other pain points that we hear, or objections that we hear, is, well, do I multiply it by 6? Well, no, not necessarily, because if you've built the pre-built task correctly, and what I would say would be correct is the average time it takes to do that job on its own from start to finish, you're including setting up time, you're including talking time, you're including callback risk time. So if you were to multiply that by 6, you're going to charge yourself way too high, purely because you've got 6 times setup, 6 times potential risk. So when you're looking at doing 6 installs or even 3 or 10, that's when you start to incentivize the client by saying, look, if I am on site and I'm installing six of these fans over the course of a couple of weeks, you don't want to get them all done now, it's going to end up costing you this, because it will be 6 times setups, because you've got to come back multiple times to do it. Yeah. So by providing a separate option to the client to say, look, if you do all 6 today, I can reduce the actual allocation of labor on this task or on this quote to be better in line with how long it's actually going to take to do that job today. So you've given a client an option. Do you want to get it all done now, or do you want to get it all done over time? And at least then when they're making their decision, they understand that, okay, over time, I'm going to pay a little bit more because I'm actually, the tradesman's actually investing more time in the job than if they were to just do everything today, because all the ladders are out, all the tools are out, the fans are there, and they can just knock it out in one go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting to say that, because obviously you're quite fluent at communicating, fixed pricing and the context of it, but it is quite simple. There's the cost to deliver the work, what the cost is involved, and it's playing with, well, what's the time taken? If, like you're saying, one fan, I've got to factor in the fact I've got to drive there, get all my tools out, say hello to you, diagnose the issue, or whether it's looking at where we're actually installing this fan, then doing the job, leaving the job, packing up, shipping off, there's a lot more time involved in that, more installations in one hit. Boom, the time comes down. And that's why it actually isn't a difficult concept to understand. It's no different to if you did takeoff quoting. All we're doing is providing a fixed amount of what this tends to cost, streamlining the quoting process with, already factoring the profit that we want to make on those jobs. It's a win-win.
Yeah,
100%.
I agree.
We hear that objection all the time, but I couldn't agree more with your opinion. Now, the second one, this is actually probably one that I think we hear a lot of, is when it comes to fixed pricing, there's typically a lot of hesitance towards it. They think they're ripping off the customer because they're so used to the prices and the norms of what they should be pricing based off the flawed do and charge model. That's their kind of standard, their ceiling that you often talk about. Is once they start looking at the fixed pricing, particularly your system FlatRateNOW, a lot of times they start going, oh, that's way higher than what I usually price. I feel really uncomfortable about that. And their automatic default is to think we're ripping off the customer. What's your thoughts on that?
I hear it a lot. I do hear that a lot, especially with business owners that are moving from the do and charge into the upfront pricing. And the main reason why I believe, and this is from speaking to quite a lot of business owners in this area, is that when you're doing the do and charge approach, you're not necessarily factoring in the, let's say, like offhand tool time, admin time, travel time, callback time, all that additional time that you are technically factoring in to your labor sell rate, which is why if a business is running do and charge correctly, they're actually factoring in and understanding that their business is going to be doing 3 or 4 or 5 hours of chargeable labor in the day, but they've actually got their guys for 8 hours. So they're offsetting that downtime by inflating their labor rate. So if a business owner has actually got their numbers and they understand them and they've got their labor rate correct, there's not really a big difference between doing the upfront versus the do and charge. There may be a slight variation based on today was a super easy version of the job. I knocked it out. It was at the front of the house. The car was parked there. I had a meter to walk and it was just super quick versus if it was more difficult. So by going through and understanding if you don't understand your numbers and you just go, okay, well, I'm charging it $90 an hour and you haven't done a change, you haven't reviewed them in a long time. When you then jump into FlatRateNOW and you then add your normal labor rate, because you've got that extra, it's about 25% to 30% of labor allocated to those tasks. That does increase the price. And that can come as a bit of a shock, because then you're realizing it's not necessarily a shock that the price has gone up, but you're realizing what you're missing and what you should actually be charging, or closer to what you should be charging for not just the customer, but for your own business, so that way you can sustain, grow, and provide that level of service that you really do want to provide your customer.
100%. And I think, like you're saying, is it foundationally starts with knowing your numbers, because that's the whole key behind it. Is the fixed pricing model is fundamentally built off you having to first understand your numbers, which a lot of contractors don't. And it's why doing charge is so easy, because it's, oh, what's everyone else charging? Oh, my value proposition is going to be price a little bit less and try and win all the work. And then you factor that in with what you're talking about in terms of, once you understand your numbers and your cost, is over time, they're constantly increasing. So the costs are increasing over time. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have guys with doing charge going, oh, they're doing $90, I'm going to do 85. So they're constantly playing in this field as cost keeps rising, and it's just shrinking the margin over time. And now we're seeing the result of that with contractors. We see it a lot with their margins just being ridiculously low, but then they feel so scared, and that glass ceiling is on them that, oh, I can't price higher than this because everyone else is the same.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because a lot of the time those contractors that are looking at another business, you don't understand their numbers. You don't understand where they're getting their overheads from, or, are they 100% private, which means that they've got to constantly bring in new leads every month, so their marketing is going to be higher? Or do they have a friend or a relative or whatnot that's in a real estate agency firm or a strata firm or an insurance firm, and have got them on the roll so that they're getting constant jobs all the time without having to spend the money to get them? So it's very difficult, and it's really cheating yourself and your business by looking at somebody else and going, well, I'm just going to take their $90 and knock off 10%.
Yeah,
It frustrates me when I hear that, when I speak to the business owners that use our software that have had that idea and going, I've just looked at the bloke down the road. Because then once they actually do spend the time to look at their numbers, they're shocked at how much more they should have been charging. And then it's really quick after that, 3 to 6 months, to see how much they've grown and how much better they're off in the business. And it's not FlatRateNOW. It's not a system that changes that or a software. It's just the knowledge that that trade business success will be instilling in your clients. Understand that that's the starting point. Doing charge or upfront pricing is nothing unless you've got the right number to start with.
And I guess that point there really solidifies why the do and charge model can be flawed in comparison to the fixed pricing, is because naturally the do and charge model becomes so focused on the hourly labor rate, where fixed pricing is what's the price of the solution. Now, the problem, and with that is what enables you to actually charge a higher rate within your jobs. Now, people look at that and go, oh, but you're charging way more. No, like we're saying before, we understand our numbers. We know that we should be charging an hourly rate of $140. Good luck trying to get away with that with do and charge, because naturally a customer might be calling up a whole bunch of contractors. Johnny down the road, he's doing $75 an hour, and you say, oh, I want to charge $120 an hour. You're battling there. And the problem is there as well, as the consumers or people in general, they're comparing that against their pay of $25 an hour, and they're looking at you going, why would I be paying you $120 an hour? So the whole problem everything gets so fixated on the labor rate, even though in a job, there's the material costs, the markup on materials, the time it's going to take the contractor to actually deliver the job. There's so many other variables there, but you're letting yourself become victim to the fact of, oh, what's the labor rate? And you get stuck at your rate. And I guess that underlies a bigger problem here. But what I wanted to make a comment on too was in terms of the cost side of things, because it's when it comes to ripping off, is the first argument is you knowing numbers. So straight away, we know you're charging what you need to be charging. But the second part of the argument is actually value to the solution. I think a lot of the times we got to detach a bit from the time and materials argument of that's what it's going to take. Because I know for a fact when I buy a car or I buy a cereal, I'm not buying it on time and materials. Of course, time and materials is involved in that. I'm buying what's the value of that solution to me.
Yeah, and I
buy two Weet-Bix over, the Woolworths brand, the home brand Weet-Bix, even though I can get it at cheaper. It's the value of the solution. I'm getting the same service, same as Johnny, the tradesman, charging $75 an hour to you charging $120. It's the same argument. It's the value of the solution. Me as a prospective buyer, I'm looking for the low risk option, the option that is more valuable to me. And if that means I get more profit margin and detaching a bit from the time and material side of things, if I'm happy to pay that higher price, then thumbs up. the customer believes that that's the value of the solution.
It all comes down to the awareness of the client. And at the end of the day, the tradesperson is the expert. So when the customer is going to feel like they're ripped off if they don't understand what they've purchased. You can pull it back to buying a t-shirt from Target for $5 versus buying a t-shirt from Hugo Boss for 400. They come out of the same factory.
Yeah.
What it is a different level of service that's provided. If you go into Target, you're going to have young teenagers that are running around, folding shirts, kind of, putting shoes away, kind of. It's a bit of a schmozzle while you're in there. But when you go into Hugo Boss, the level of service is they're going to offer you a cup of coffee, you like a glass of water. The place is immaculate, everything's pristine. So the level of service that you are provided in the two different establishments, I definitely understand that they're different customers and they market towards different people. But at the end of the day, it all falls down to, does the customer understand what they are getting from your quotation? Now, if you're doing do and charge, you're actually doing that process after you've done the work. You arrive on site, you talk to the client, my hot water unit's not working or my tap's leaking or whatever it might be, not a worry, we'll resolve it and then we'll come back and tell you. You're then having to have the price haggling happen after you've done the work. So you're then going to be rushing to get the invoice paid at least the minimum amount to ensure that you've covered yourself. Whereas with the upfront pricing approach or just presenting quotations to your client before you start doing the work, you go through that motion. And by using a system like FlatRateNOW, which has all the headings and descriptions in there, your tradesmen are not focusing on writing quotes. We're eliminating the need to write a lot of the quote. Yes, there's going to be times where you need to adjust the descriptions and add your own, but you're actually focusing more energy on ensuring that your customer understands what the problem is, which of the 3 or 4 or 5 solutions they can follow, and which one would you recommend that they go down. Yeah. And that's why if you take a look at the do and charge versus the upfront pricing, there is quite a stark difference in the average value. Yeah. And it's not about ripping people off. It's not about overcharging. And it's most definitely not about me arriving on site today and saying, I'm going to charge you $500 because it's my kid's birthday. I need to quickly get some money, versus going to someone else tomorrow and charging them $200 for the job. It's about ensuring that you use the systems and the processes that are available to you to provide a level of service to your customer so that when they accept the job, they are comfortable, they understand, and then that not eliminates, but then reduces the risk of them coming back after the fact, haggling about price, because you've already gone through all of that beforehand and everyone can happily move on to the next step.
And I think that really ties into probably an underlying issue or belief within the industry. It's that the market's price driven. Everything's price driven. Now, it's not, it is or it isn't. It's a spectrum. There are incredibly price-driven customers, and then there's customers who are incredibly focused on value. And that word value is always the missing component in these discussions about pricing, because like you're saying, through those quotations is you're providing value up front, communicating what's involved in the job. And a big thing we always talk about is it's in terms of the front end when it comes to marketing, sales, pricing, is that's all about perceived value. Because the customers never used you before. They have no idea, unless it's come from a referral, of course, but they have no idea what your process is, how you do things. So there's an element of risk there. Whereas what we want to be doing on the front end, and exactly like a system like FlatRateNOW, is it's communicating what's involved. Here's the price. So immediately perceived risk is going down. And in a retrospect to that is perceived value is going up. And that's same with on your marketing and sales side of things too, having strong, powerful marketing that's communicating, how you're going to uniquely solve the pain points of the customer, talking about your benefits, getting those Google reviews stacked so you've got that third-party social proof. All these elements, and FlatRateNOW or fixed pricing in general is an element that just slots right in there, is all about building that value that allows you to charge a higher rate and differentiate yourself from everyone else and all the do and charge contractors who are stuck at that $90 an hour. You get to escape that and start charging what you need to because you've earned the right to, because you understand that value is the key in providing that perceived value in the front. And then once you actually start delivering the job, we're not here to rip people off, is you have that profitability and you've got the money coming in to focus on, well, I'm going to provide an exceptional customer experience and an exceptional customer service that's so much superior to all the other contractors, and mainly the do and charge contractors who are just focused on trying to do the job. Is you can sit there, you can uncover what the customer is looking to achieve, work with them, slow the work down. All those benefits come that provide greater value, not only in the front end, but the back end, which means even if you're pricing 20, 30% more than the do and charge guys, the customer isn't getting ripped off because they're getting that value.
That's right. And it's also one thing that I've never quite understood within the do and charge. So with the upfront pricing, if you let's say I use the hot water unit as an example. If you go in and install a hot water unit, you charge your client X amount for that. The customer signs for it. You do the work. They ring you up tomorrow. Hey, you sent you sent Marcel out to the job. Fantastic. He installed it. I've got no hot water. It's been 24 hours. So generally what I find with those businesses, they will send the tradesman back out there. Tradesman takes a look at the work, fixes it, thumbs up, sorry for the hassle, move on. What I don't understand with I'll be honest, I never actually looked into it because, I've never really had the thought to do it. But for a do and charge business, do they then charge the client more time to go back out there to talk to that customer to then fix the problem? Because, it could be an easy, I forgot to flip the switch, or it could be a bigger problem, So that's where I just never quite understood. So when you're providing a quote up front to the customer, you're not only just providing the quote that the solution today is going to be resolved, but if there's any problems in the not too distant future with the work that we've just done, we're going to come back and fix it. Because at the end of the day, it's about ensuring that you receive the service that you had paid for. And that's where I just don't quite understand how that would work in the do and charge space, because you're so focused on getting tracking the time that you've been on site to then invoice the job, that if you're then called back, you haven't really allowed for anything in that respect. So do you then have to then bill them again? And then that's then going to lead to further customer argument, further disgruntledness. And it's just not, I can't get my head wrapped around that. And I suppose, I'm sure somebody can explain it to me what they do in their business, but I just don't see how that in the long term would be beneficial for the customer and the business, because it sounds like a bit of a hard.
And even if as a do and charge contractor, you go out of goodwill, decide to wear that cost because you made a mistake on the job and you have to go back out and you don't charge it, well, now you're just hurting yourself. This probably solidifies that main objection of it being a ripoff is, well, it's not a ripoff because one, you're charging to your numbers like we spoke about before. Two, you understand you're focused on value and providing a solution that the customer is happy to pay more for. And number three, you're bearing the risk because you're making it easier for the customer, because you're going, I'm going to charge, my fixed price is slightly higher, but that's because I'm bearing the risk. If I do the job faster, I get rewarded. If I screw up and make mistakes or I'm unproductive, the job goes over, I wear that. I don't come after you going, I need more money to continue this job. So there's three hard-hitting points of why fixed pricing isn't a ripoff. So that's the first objection smashed, mate. The next one, this is kind of probably similar to the same objection before, but when it comes to do and charge, I always hear that it's the fair option, because the customer pays for the time and materials of the contractor and nothing more. What do you think about that fairness argument?
It's an interesting one, because it's like it's who dictates what's fair. For the end of the day, one customer today can say that I had very fair value from my tradesman who did do and charge. Tomorrow they could have an upfront price tradesman come in and have a fair value as well. So my response in respect to the fairness is that at the end of the day, it's as long as the customer deems that the work that was done was fair for what they paid and they understood what went on, then really it's not anyone else, and no one else can really argue what's fair and what's right and what's wrong, because it's all about the customer being, at the end of the day, it's the customer that needs to come out on top with respect to job being done in the right time. And they're also seeing the value in the dollar value that they paid. And when I've had business owners ring me up and say, look, I've got a customer ringing me up, how do I refund, or how do I do this? And I say, well, what's going on? Oh, the client's arguing with me even though they signed the quote. And I said, okay, well, why? Why did the customer feel like that wasn't fair? Oh, I'm not too sure. And the problem always stems down to the fact that the tradesman didn't spend the time to talk to the customer and educate them on what was going on.
Yeah.
The client felt like they understood, no matter if it's do and charge, no matter if it's upfront pricing, if the client understood what was going on, then they're going to feel like it's fair. And then that, at the end of the day, no matter what the system is, as long as the customer feels it's fair, tradesmen can argue till the cows come home on which one's fair, which one's not. But at the end of the day, it's the customer who governs what's fair and what's not. So it all, I can't say it all, I shouldn't say that, but generally it stems down to the fact that the client did not have the time invested in them to understand this was your problem, these are the solutions, which one do you feel is fair for yourself today? We can't tell them, the tradesman can't tell them, and that's what's really important there.
And I guess that ties back to what we were saying before with even the value of the solution is if you're not communicating what's involved, you're making it very hard for the customer to understand what that value actually is. We've had clients in past where, for example, he was a block drains and pipe relining specialist, and that communication wasn't happening. So they immediately see his prices. Oh, that's way too steep. I'm not pricing that. But as soon as you start communicating, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that, there's this involved, and you start communicating like you're saying in FlatRateNOW, where a lot of that's pre-built, ready to go, it's making it easier for the customer to understand, right, that's why that bottom line price is there, because they've got to do all this scope of work is involved. The price makes sense. And I guess the second thing as well with the fairness is, one thing I always like to look at is, what is fair about time and materials? There's so many variables there because, well, one, how do we know how much material the contractor is using? What markups is he going to use? The contractor himself, has he got great experience? Is he going to be able to get this job done really, really quickly? Or is he going to take ages? Whereas fixed pricing, you're going, this is the price. Do you agree? It's like going to the shops. Are you going to buy the cereal box for $5, or you grab the cereal box from the aisle, walk out the door, have no idea what it's going to cost you, then you get invoiced a random amount. This is the price. What's fair about that? Is
actually, it's a good point.
Price up front is it's every other market is largely doing it, but the trade and construction industry has fallen behind in that regard.
It should. The question should be more, what's fairer for the tradesman? What's fairer for the business? Yeah. Because at the end, me waffling on before about the customer, and that's what everybody. Clearly, we always want to focus on our customer, because at the end of the day, if we don't have customers, we've got no business. But if you're not treating your business fairly, then you can't provide the level of service that you want to provide your customer. So it's just a nice little cycle. There's nothing. It's no different to, as you touched on there, with any other industry. There's very few industries out there that do and charge. I can't even. I'm trying to think of one now, and I can't really pick one. I'm sure,
What a pain in the ass if other industries were timing materials.
Yeah, imagine rocking into a burger shop and they're saying, okay, well, I want the chicken burger. What's the price? Well, just let me, I want to cook it. This patty's a little bit thicker, so it's going to take an extra minute or two, so I have to bump up the price. It just doesn't quite make sense. And that's just, and with the technology and with the knowledge that we've got and the systems that are there that help us to govern what is the average time to do a job, I just don't see that there's a fair answer in respect to which of those is going to, why would do and charge be fairer for the tradesman? It will, the argument of it's cheaper for the customer, great, but that's just a short-term win. What about the long-term problems that could potentially happen from it?
And I like how you use the feedback loop. We actually talk about that a lot, because you're 100% right. If you're pricing where you need to price, means you're making the money the business needs to make. You can pay your staff well. You can get the best equipment. You can, get the best tradesmen who can deliver the best services. You're not scared about shit. I got to, make these shortcuts or, do this job as quick as possible and not provide that great customer experience. That's all negative for the customer. And like I say, there's a short-term benefit for the customer, but long-term, it's not there. Whereas if you're pricing where you should be, that's not a problem. You've got the money there to invest, to take your time on the job, to do the right things for the customer. And then when that discussion of, but if I price cheaper, I'll get more referrals because they'll want to use me again because I'm cheaper. Not the case at all. If you shortcut, did a shit job, didn't provide great customer experience, and then you've got this other tradesman over here who's 20% more expensive using fixed pricing, but he's took his time, spoke with the customer, understood what they were trying to achieve, hired the best tradesman to actually go deliver that job rather than having to get the bottom of the barrel tradesman out there. That's the difference. And that's, like you're saying, it's a positive feedback loop where for the value-driven customers, the good customers, the premium customers that you want to be working with, that's what they're looking for. They don't want the shit that's, is just rushed and isn't a good job. They're happy to pay more. And that's the difference.
Everybody wants it. I don't know anybody out there that does that's more than, who's happy to get the bottom barrel of anything? It's when you're at the pub and they go to pour the schooner and you can tell it's at the bottom of the barrel because there's a lot of heads coming through. You're going, I don't want that. Give me the new barrel. So it's, there's no one in the world wants the bottom of the barrel, and trying to shortcut the idea around, the client wants a cheaper price. You touched on it before. Yes, there are some customers out there that are very price focused, but they're actually price focused looking for the greatest amount of service that they can get for that amount.
Exactly.
That's why you've got I'm trying to think of the name of the company, Compare the Markets, whatever it is. Those platforms are all there about driving as much service or product offering as they can get for the cheapest rate. So it's not about offering a cheap alternative that's going to be crap. they're trying to push those insurance companies, those car companies, whatever it is, to provide the highest amount of service and product offering for the cheapest amount. Exactly. And that's what, so it's still even that argument about, we want it to be cheaper for the customer. That's not the right approach in that respect. It's actually, they're trying to get as much out of you as possible for the lowest amount of dollar value.
I guess this ties it back to everything. It's the old saying, people want value for money. Now, if your value is the same as everyone else because you're providing the same shitty experience, the same shitty service, then you can't escape. It is unethical for you to raise your prices because you're not providing more value to that customer. You're not giving them better bang for buck. Whereas with fixed pricing, like we were saying before, the feedback loop, you can slow it down. You can focus on doing a good job, providing great customer service and experience. So the right customers are getting that value for money. It doesn't matter if you're 20, 30% more expensive. The value for money is still there. And that's all that matters at the end of the day.
That's right. Yep.
So blasted another objection, mate. The next one that I want to talk about is the belief that contractors are going to lose a bunch of jobs and clients as soon as they start using fixed pricing. What's your thoughts on that?
The change. So when you're taking on a new process, there will always be jobs that you'll lose in between that change. It's like when if you ever work with when I worked in a brokerage company, when I worked as a broker, we really liked when businesses were being acquired or when they were having a change of management, because then that meant to a change of process, that meant to a change of change of reporting. Things fall through the cracks, and that's just the way of business. When things change, you can't always expect to have everything in line with the way you think is going to be, because you're so used to doing it a certain way, and then you're changing it. It's teething. There's teething issues. You are going to stumble. You're going to make a couple of mistakes, but it's not about that short term. It's about looking in the long term. If you can see that you're going to earn an extra 10%, an extra 20%, extra 30% on your jobs over the course of 12 months, then really reporting on the first month and making a decision then is actually going to do yourself a disservice, because you're going to make that up in the long term.
Yeah.
So, and I have had businesses ring me up and they've said, that has been a pain point of theirs. By changing over, I've got to train my guys up. I'm nervous about losing these. What about my existing customers who are used to getting this price? It all comes down to communication. Communicate with your clients. It's not so bad. When a new starter starts, when they arrive on site, you're generally going to say to them, we've got a new starter today. Sorry, there might be a couple of little problems that arise. There's no harm in telling the client, look, we've got a new system in place. We're building it up. If you communicate to them and they're aware that, okay, you're trialing something new, yeah, of course, some of them might be a bit upset. I don't want to be your guinea pig. But by being open and honest with it, you can get feedback really quickly from your customers, which is then going to improve on the process. So, because when you're trying to fit a circle into a square peg, not going to work. You can ram it in there, you're going to kind of get there. But by adjusting your processes and understanding that you've got that feedback from your customers, you're going to be fine. Yeah. So so don't look at the potential loss of the first couple of weeks just by learning the new system as being what you're going to be foreseeing and projecting for the next 12, 18, 24 months.
Yeah. That's a perspective I've never really thought about. And even from the other side, though, where there's the concern of, I'm going to lose clients and jobs, is something that we're always battering, and I have to do it over and over and over again with our clients, because it's an easy concept to understand, but it's a hard one to implement because it requires some balls and some courage to have that mindset shift. And it's be a profit-driven contractor, not a volume-driven contractor. Yeah. And because with do and charge is the only feasible way for those people to make money is be busier to try and make more money. And that's found foundationally because they don't actually understand the numbers. That's how they've ended up in do and charge in the first place. And it's just, let's be busy as hell. Whereas you move to, fixed pricing or a system like yours, is naturally you're making more money on those jobs. So if you actually looked back, and we do it all the time with our clients, and you break down the numbers from leads, conversion, to quoting the job, to customers accepting those, the cost to deliver the job, what you got. Once you break it down from a job perspective and then look at it over the entire year, you actually make so much more money by pricing your jobs more profitably with yourself. You're far less stressful because you're not time strapped all the time. You're working far less. So therefore you can focus more time on providing greater value to those customers. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is better because you understand your costs, you understand what you need to price, that even if you do go to where you price, because again, it comes back to fixed pricing isn't a rip-off. It's pricing where you need to be based off your numbers. So if you're doing it in that regard, if you're going to be taking on clients or you're losing clients who aren't happy to pay that price, so be it.
Yeah.
What's the point of doing those jobs? What are you doing it for charity or something?
Yeah,
I don't know any tradesman who wants to service their property managers for charity. That's for sure. So it's important to understand that fixed pricing, like we were saying before, is based off your costs. That's what you need to charge to make your business viable. If the client isn't happy with the prices that you're charging to make your business viable, what's the point?
And another point I wanted to raise in respect to as an answer to that question was, if you're doing charge and you get told that your $90 an hour is too low and you should be charging at $150, are you not going to increase your labor rate to $150 because you're scared about losing a couple of clients? It's the same at the end of the day, because when you move into when you move from do and charge into upfront pricing, the prices are going to go up. You are going to get some price objections from your customers. You might lose a couple of them, but as you touched on there, you're going to be earning more in respect to per job, which is beneficial for your business. So it's actually one and the same.
Yeah.
So it's no different in respect to, would you not increase your labor rate if you knew that you were quoting at a loss before you even went onto the job site?
To cement that point, look at your numbers.
Yep.
If you look at your numbers, it'll make sense. In fact, we'll put a tool down below on the video, and you can download it, open it up, and put your numbers in, and you will see the impact of increasing your prices, how much more profit you can make if you actually start pricing where you need to, and losing customers in the same regard. Because once you look at the numbers, it's black and white. It's very simple to understand, right? That's where I need to be. And that's where it makes sense. And being okay that you are going to lose customers. And this kind of ties into more of a sales side of things, but a lot of contractors have this belief or this feeling that, I've got a high conversion rate from when the inquiry comes in to getting the job. They got, awesome, I got a high conversion rate. It's actually a really bad way of looking at it. Is we always say there's actually two phases to conversion. The first phase is inquiry to quote. The second phase is quote to job. Now, ideally, you want to be qualifying as hard as you can to get rid of the budget buyers, the price shoppers, between when an inquiry comes in to when someone's, I want to take a quote. Now, whether that's through a consultation fee, diagnostic fee, whatever you want to call it. You want to keep that low, but then from once someone's, I want the quote, you want to max out that conversion from quote to job to 100%. So that way you're working with the right customers. You're not wasting your time with the wrong ones. You're delivering a better service to those customers because you're slowing yourself down. You're not having to be a bidding machine, just punching out quotes every day of the week. And that's a huge win.
I've actually had a lot of business owners that have used our software and have seen an increase in the success straight away from conversion. So when they built the quote and converting that client, that they've actually, although their rates are already high, they're set to the rate that they need to be, they've increased their labor rate to start to lose some of those jobs because they're winning too many that they couldn't get there to do them. And at the start, that sounds like a fantastic problem to have. But there's nothing more frustrating for a customer than phoning up a tradesman that says, I'll be out there, then they don't show up. Or they arrive on site, they give you the quotation, you say, so they say to you, I'll send you, send me the quote, I'll come back to you when we want to go ahead. And then they ring up and they say, we haven't got any time to do it for the next month or two because we're jam-packed. So it's an interesting problem to have, but we do also find that, achieving 100% success rate for a lot of these businesses is actually negative for them because because they've got the customers are so used to getting pricing up front from everything, from Uber through to buying clothes online to shopping online, whatever it might be, that once they start to get that consistently, they get happy, they get the understanding, they want to go ahead. And then these businesses are sitting there going, well, I can't find guys fast enough. And it's not about the salesy part of it all. It's just the fact that the businesses that who used to do and charge, or not even do and charge, they kind of did a mix of upfront pricing and not, are investing more time talking to their customers. That's then going to drive up their success rate. And then they go, well, hang on a second, I'm winning too many. I need to bump up my labor rate. So I need to bump up something because if I'm doing this well now I'm going to hire more guys, but I can't get them straight away. So there is a negative side to being able to get that really good success rate. You've got to be able to support that. Because there's nothing worse than being told, and then, sorry, I can't show. That's frustrating.
That ties into, because I really want to drive this point home, is you can be the greatest plumber, greatest electrician, greatest painter in the world, but if you provide a shit experience, you ain't getting a referral. That's the fact of the matter. If, like you're saying, if you're not communicating, if you're so rushed because you've got so much going on because you're converting too quickly with the wrong customers at cheap prices, you're going to miss communication. You're not going to be able to spend the necessary time on the job to talk with the customer. You're not going to be able to do the run through at the end. You're going to be a frantic finisher at the end of the job, throwing all the tools in the back of the ute or in the back of the van to get out of there so you don't waste any more billable time. That's all the negative experience. You could be an average contractor or an average plumber, average electrician, whatever you want to be, but provide an exceptional service and an exceptional experience for the customer where you roll out that red carpet. That matters more.
Yep.
At the end of the day, when it comes to the perception of the service, delivering a great customer experience and a great customer service matters more. Of course, doing a good job of what you're doing is really important, but it gets a big shadow probably great cloud's the right word. A great cloud gets overshadowed because of the fact that you haven't delivered a great experience.
How many times have you heard people complain about a colleague who doesn't look like they do very much work, but they're really good at just communicating, talking, being personable?
Yeah.
That you go, well, how's this bloke getting through? How's this woman getting through life without doing very much work? But yet they're here all the time. Customers absolutely love them.
Yeah.
And it's just having a chin wag. Because at the end of the day, your clients are still people. They're still human. They still want to have that connection. You rushing to get out of the job site, chucking your tools in the back, chucking your boots on if you've got to change them, not even waving to say goodbye, getting in the car and driving off quickly. These are bad taste in the customer's mouth as well. They're thinking, why is that bloke in such a rush? Where's he going off to? Why can't he turn around and say goodbye? Yeah. It's just those little things that matter to a customer is the more personal approach. And that's where you find that even if they are an average tradesman, if you've got the ability just to say hello, to communicate, and then do that with your customer, it goes a long way. It really does help to drive.
Every day of the week, 100%. Yep. And we've seen that time and time again with so many clients when we're communicating to them. As soon as they start tapping into customer experience, they go, holy shit. They're charging more, they're charging far more than everyone else. They're $150, $160, $170 plus hourly rates, and they have customers trying to pay them halfway through the job because they're going, this is insane, because they've never experienced that kind of service or experience before with a contractor. So tapping into that is how you maximize the value of the job with doing a good job, but it really does play a huge part. But I love your comment before there as well with, it is people. It doesn't matter if you're in business to customer or B2B markets, it's P2P. It's people to people at all times. So if you focus on what can I do to ensure that this person feels like they're getting the most value from my service and making sure that my service doesn't feel like a ripoff, even though I'm charging more, you'll win. You'll be fine. There'll be no problems charging those high rates. We see it time and time again with all our clients.
And through history, there's businesses that do and charge that provide that top level exceptional service, and they survive, they thrive, even though they might be charging $250 an hour, which seems like a ridiculous amount of money to charge for do and charge for a lot of tradesmen. But it's because they understand that, okay, well, I know what I've got to charge. I'm going to do it as do and charge. I'm going to educate the client beforehand. So they're kind of doing a bit of a reverse upfront quote, because they're still providing that level of exceptional service. So when the customer sees the invoice, they go, well, you know what? He walked in, he had a cup of tea with me, he sat down, he said hello, he went through the whole process with me, I understood what was going on, didn't give me a quote, didn't need it, I trusted him.
Yep.
He then provided me the invoice, explained everything that went through and what went through on the job and what they did, and I was happy to pay the invoice. So at the end of the day, it always comes back to being personal with the client, providing that value for service and whatnot. But unfortunately, the do and charge approach has always been kind of fall back on. Kind of want to half-ass this, I half-ass that. I'm just going to go in there and do that, slap the invoice on the table, and fingers crossed they'll pay me via bank transfer in the next 24 hours, which is not ideal.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I want to say too, we're not 100% against do and charge. It's just people get carried away with using do and charge because it's such an easy option, when it's far more appropriate to provide quoted, whether it is fixed pricing or a takeoff quote, I don't care, but quoting is the far more appropriate option for the large majority of the jobs that are being done out there that are being currently done through do and charge, because it's the lazy pricing model and no one wins out of it, like we've been speaking about. The customer doesn't win, you as the contractor doesn't win. What good is that?
Yeah, that's right.
So that's another one busted. This is actually an interesting objection in the next one, and I'm very curious to actually hear your perspective of it, is when people think they've got to bring a fixed pricing system in, or more specific, even flat rate now, that they have to become exceptional salesmen, or they have to bring in a professional salesman to actually sell these jobs. What's your thoughts on that?
Don't get me wrong, a quoting system will always attract salesmen, because the ability to convey the message with the quote has a far greater success of being converted. But one thing that I do see time and time again with tradesmen that use our system, they're not, I wouldn't say that they're very good at salesmen. They don't like to do the quoting, because then they start to fumble their words as they're talking, and you hear them on the phone. And I'm the same, I get too excited. I start to mumble words together, and, that's passion. And what I do say to that objection is, you don't need to be a salesman if you're providing a quotation to a customer, because what you're doing then is you're actually educating them on the solution. That's passion. That comes from you. You understand what's going on, the customer doesn't. So by simply just going through the motions of talking to the client about, here's your problem, here's a solution, and explain to them everything around that solution, which you've already got in your mind, because you already know all of that, you're the expert, that is sales.
Yeah.
No one likes a cold salesman. Nobody likes being cold sold to anymore. Everyone likes the warm salesman that provides here's a problem, here's a solution, here's a couple of the different options that you can take. Which one would you prefer? Do you have any questions? Inviting the customer in to ask questions about the options or the quotes that you're putting forward is a true salesman. And if you actually look at a lot of the good, best, and expert salesmen out there, they don't really do a lot of talking in respect to, outside of what the actual solution is. They invite the customer to ask the questions, because then what they're doing is they're just answering what the client's interested in, understanding what their pain points are and what their barriers are, which generally is, what's a tempering valve? What's an RCBO? Why do I have to have that installed? Like, these questions that don't usually get asked by the customer, because if you're either doing in charge or just giving a single quote to your customer and saying, this is what you got to do, take it or leave it, they're going to go, well, I'm not going to ask questions because I'm going to get nervous about it. So to go back to answer the question, you definitely don't need to be a salesman to do upfront pricing. Yeah, of course, you can hire salesmen. They're going to drive the sales up and yippee-doo-dah. But at the end of the day, the true tradesman out there is the one that can explain to the client and articulate just what's going on. The quoting system then comes in behind and helps that. You said that you've got to remove the hot water heater, disconnect this, drain this, connect this, blah, blah, blah. What you've said is replicated on the quote. So then when the client reads it that next morning or 2 weeks later, when they have a chance, they go, oh yeah, Troy did explain that to me. That makes sense. I understood what he was going through. I want to go ahead with Troy because he explained to me that the Australian standards dictated that I have to do this and this. He explained to me that having a copper pipe on this side was not going to be a good idea in case of dog, whatever it is. You're just talking to the client. And the idea of that it having to be a salesman is just it's wrong. It's really wrong.
I think the big word there is, you nailed it on the head, is conviction. Because if you're genuine in providing a service, you're a service-based business providing a service and solutions to your customers. Like you're saying, a tool like FlatRateNOW is very powerful, or if it's not even FlatRateNOW, just in general quoting, communicating, understanding what they're trying to solve. Don't spew on them with all your knowledge straight up. Is try and understand what are they trying to achieve? What's the underlying motive? What's their goal and outcome? And also, how do they want it done? Because they might have had a prior experience with a contractor that was terrible. They left a mess or a huge to-do list at the end of the job. I just like, if that wasn't done, too easy. But then again, tying back into what you're saying is focusing on just providing the solution. You don't have to have any push salesman tactics or anything like that. That's not the ball game. And that's even especially true for your team members. If you've got good tradesmen that can go out there and know what they're doing, they'll have no problems. All that matters is if they're with a tool like FlatRateNOW, that they're proficient with the tool and they know how to use it to make sure that they provide a great sale up front to the customer by showing them the options and the scratch pad and things like that that you've spoken about. That's great for the employees. But I would even argue if you're a director or you're the owner of your own business, even if you don't like sales, and again, you don't have to be a good salesman, but I would even argue though, you should be, or you should be striving to be one, because sales is the oxygen of the business. So if you don't know how to sell, you've got a big problem. And this comes back to something that we say all the time is the moment you sign up to get an ABN is the moment that you give up the right to be a tradesman. You're now a business owner. You've got greater responsibility, and your number one responsibility is sales. So if you can't sell, you've got big problems right off the bat. So from that perspective, you don't have to learn sales to learn a user tool like FlatRateNOW, but we would even push you should be. But a tool set like FlatRateNOW is great, especially for your team to continue using, because it can be so streamlined. They don't have to sell. All they have to do is provide their service, and that's the game.
I think it's because a lot of people connect sales to the dollar value currency, which is wrong, because in a business, so let's look at so on support. So if you're offering support, in our business, we've got, the sales guys who talk to the tradesmen and provide the understanding, and they're the ones that get the dollar value currency in. But if the tradesperson isn't talking to our sales team, they're talking to our customer success team, or they're talking to our support team, the currency for that sale is different. It's building the rapport with the customer. It's did the tradesman that rung through and had an issue and needed support, did they get what they needed? Was that resolved? Could we provide the solution for them? That currency there is a big brownie point. Tick, tick, they're going to leave us a nice review. So sales is not just dollar values. It's constantly communicating with your customers to get a satisfactory outcome for them, which may be a review. It may be dollar value. It may even just be that they're going to talk to a friend of yours about the software. So everybody in the business is doing sales, no matter, if you're an admin assistant, just entering in paperwork, as far up to the CEO of the company. Everybody's the face of the company, and everybody's technically selling the brand. And that's very true for any industry.
100%. I couldn't agree more. So boom, we've slammed another one, mate.
Excellent.
All right. So I just want to ask just a few, probably more FlatRateNOW specific questions. The first one is that building a fixed pricing system for yourself, or fixed price structure, is going to take ages. Now, obviously, FlatRateNOW has that capacity. How does FlatRateNOW solve that problem for a lot of traders out there who go, shit, there's a lot of work involved in building up a fixed pricing model?
So when you join up with FlatRateNOW, you get access to all, close to 1,900 pre-built tasks that are available there for you to use from day one, straight away. There is a lot of time and effort that a business owner will invest in building their own price book, but that's not even the start. Once you finish building your own price book, you've then got to maintain it, and you got to do it monthly. Prices for materials are changing. If not weekly, they're doing it monthly. You've then got your inflation you got to be concerned about. You got to monitor your overheads. So then you got to look at your labor rate, and then you've also got to look at the average allocation of time per task. In and amongst that, are the products that you've got linked to those tasks still available? Are they deprecated? Do you need to remove them? Are there new products? So it's a never-ending cycle. And that's what we do every single day. And I shouldn't say we, I should say Dave, who runs the catalog in FlatRateNOW. Every single day he takes a look, he gets feedback from the users of our software. This product's no longer available, or here's new technology that the suppliers are providing. We want to start to use them. Can we get new pre-builds allocated? Not a worry at all. Or, we're finding out that for our business, the average time to do this job is a little bit lower. How do we modify that? So our system comes ready to go with those pre-builds. You just got to enter in your labor rate, your product markup, and any selling prices, such as your VIPs and so forth. But then from there, that's just the starting point. You can then go in there and start to modify those tasks. I use my Jet Blast CCTV combo as a loss leader. I know I should be charging for 3 hours of time, even if I'm just doing 90 minutes of jet blasting, but I'm not going to charge that because I want to get the camera down there. I want to get the jetter down there. I want to see what's going on, clean it up, talk to the client to then discuss the next steps, get an upsell from there. So again, the starting point, FlatRateNOW has all that ready to go, but then it's then also managing and maintaining it for your own business. But starting from square one to do it yourself, that's a very long road. And then it's a road that never ends after that. So that's all a part of the service that we provide. While using the software, if you've got any questions, you need a pre-built task designed for your own business because you take a slightly different approach, we love hearing that. The more that we understand about the businesses that use our software, and the more we understand about how it's being used on the field, the better those tasks get. And everybody benefits from it, not just a single business.
100%. I think that's great. And I think there's a good lesson there in general, is that business is dynamic. It's always changing. To assume that something's just fixed and it's fixed forever is foolish. Is, again, fundamentally knowing your numbers at a foundation level, plugging those numbers into FlatRateNOW, and then letting FlatRateNOW do a lot of that back end work for you, and monitoring and helping you from a material pricing, making sure that the time, everything's updated and continuing to be maintained and updated, that's a huge burden taken off the shoulders of people who are looking to get into this.
Actually, I shouldn't say a few, a good portion of the more recent businesses that have jumped on our freemium have actually reached out to us because they are fed up with how many price hikes have been in the last 6 months with the suppliers, that they're not even keeping up with it anymore. That they're, 1 month is 6%, next month is 8%, next month is 12%. You're thinking, what is going on? These are constantly going up and up and up. Because we're constantly inputting those price files, those that use our software don't even have to think about it. We receive the price files on the 4th of every month. They're uploaded that day. So by the time the prices have been released by the suppliers, we've pretty much got them in the system. So then when you're then at that next job, that price is then increased for you straight away. So you don't have to think about that. The heavy lifting is, and that burden of even having to think about that is removed. And you can then get back to focusing what you really should be focusing on as a trade company, your customers and the service you provide, not an IT company. And that's what a lot of trades business owners that I find think they are. Oh, but we're a tech company. No, you're not. You're a trade company. You should focus on providing that. And you leverage businesses like us, who our core focus is to make sure quoting is as easy as possible for you guys and as consistent as possible as well. And that's really important.
And I think that's a great message to send, because we're always pushing that. That's actually a different point of view of that as well, is because we're always saying that with bookkeeping, is if you're doing your own books, you're not helping yourself grow. Is at the end of the day, you've got your high value tasks as a business owner, and largely that's marketing, sales, leadership. And you got to think of it as the business owner. Your hourly rate isn't your hourly rate that you charge out. It's the hourly rate of the business. Yes. So if you've got a 500,000 or let's say $1 million business, and you've got 2,000 hours that you work throughout the year, that means your hourly rate is $500. So every time you're doing an activity that's less than $500, you're shrinking the business. The more you spend north of that, which is your marketing, sales, leadership components, you're growing your business and you're going the direction you want to. And like you're saying, we see it a lot, especially with the more savvy tradesmen, is they like getting into the nitty gritty and trying to build their own spreadsheets and their own tools and stuff, which it is important to have that component, but not to try and build a whole entire overarching system. Sometimes it isn't the best way to go. Is leverage, whether it's FlatRateNOW to have that system managed for you, whether it's bookkeepers to have that stuff managed for you, whether it's outsourced administration to manage your jobs. It's those areas that if you're spending too much time in there and you're not focusing on what you should be doing, you're only hurting your business. So there can be a lot of power in outsourcing and delegating those functions to make your life a lot easier and grow you and take your business the direction you want it to go.
Everybody does it. I put my hand up and say, I'll make that mistake. It's hard to not turn around and go, well, I want to get involved in that. I want to put my hands on it. I want to do it. And then you got to smack yourself in the back of the head and go, is that what I'm good at? No, this individual is. Let them do that so I can do what's best for the business and focus on what I actually am passionate about, which is the sales and the marketing of the business. But if I turn around and start doing accounting, I'm going to spend hours upon hours upon hours trying to accomplish what someone else can do in a couple of minutes. And as if it's about $500 an hour, wow, there's a lot of lost time and a lot of lost profits that are sitting in there as well. So yeah, no one should ever feel bad about that. Yeah. We all make that mistake and no one can get away from it. It's just about managing it and understanding that, okay, I do want to get a little bit involved, but I'm going to do it from an arm's length away because I'm interested. And obviously as a CEO or the owner of the business, you need to know what's going on. Yeah. But that's what you got the individuals there for, to do the nitty gritty so that you can continually focus on the leadership and the direction of the ship.
Yeah. And again, you're totally right. It's just being conscious of, because especially if you're a one-man band or it's you and an apprentice or it's you and a tradesman, it's going to be very difficult to start delegating all the delivery side of things too. You've still got to show up. And, even as you grow, there's going to be times where you got to fight fires. You got to jump in and go to a low value task. That happens. Yeah. But it's just being conscious that being in that activity for too long and sticking around in that activity isn't beneficial. And I think that's the lesson to keep in mind there, is remain focused on and driven towards what are the tasks that I should be doing, looking to backfill those tasks that I shouldn't be doing. And then, if I have to jump in occasionally and do those things, that's okay. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's right.
But mate, look, we've had a great conversation today. I think we've busted a lot of those objections that are probably lingering around the industry and a lot of those false beliefs as well. But I guess to tie everything together, why do you believe flat rate pricing is necessary for a contractor to achieve trade business success?
It's very important for a business owner to be able to forecast what they're going to be earning or achieving next month, 6 months, 12 months down the track. when you're using an upfront pricing system, you know, on an average, what each task is going to earn you as profit. Yes, there's going to be ups and downs in the job, but overall, you're going to find out that you'll identify that if I need to win 100 servicing of tasks to achieve the profit that I need, you know that you need to win 100 of them. So by understanding the numbers, projecting what you need, the system will then help you to achieve that outcome in a far easier, probably not easy, not the right word, but a far more accurate and more reasonable approach than if you were just doing it on a do and charge approach where you're not too sure if this task today is going to take you 2 hours. It might take you an hour. So now you've got to find another job to cover for that time as well.
Yeah.
So that's what my thoughts are in respect to that.
Great message. I love it. I love it. So any closing words on the topic to leave for the viewers, or how they can find out about FlatRateNOW and whatnot?
Look, we've got social medias that you can jump on, or head to Google and type in FlatRateNOW or one word. Reach out to us. We're very active. Always love answering questions. It is a hot topic that's been around for a very long time, and a lot of tradesmen out there have their own ideology around the right approach. We love to understand that and learn from it, and we appreciate the feedback that we get. So jump on our website, flatrateNow.net, or jump onto our social media, which is at FlatRateNOW.
Awesome. So guys, that's all we've got for today. I'd just like to thank Marcel for jumping on. It's really great bringing on experts like himself who are dive into the world of flat rate pricing and fixed pricing. It's awesome to get their insights and their opinions on it. At Trade Business Success, we share a lot of the same beliefs that they do, and I would say we're very, very aligned on the topic. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and thanks again, Marcel.
Thanks, Troy. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey everyone, I really hoped you enjoyed that episode of Contractor Secrets. If you want to find out a bit more about how you realistically should be looking at your pricing and understanding your numbers and your costs and how to factor those in to uncover what your labor rates should be and how to actually properly quote, we've got a book below that you can download, How to Price for Profit. It goes into all the detail, 250 plus pages, 40,000 words. It's no fluff. It'll teach you everything you need to know, as well as the understanding of how do you start maximizing the perceived value to start getting those high price jobs over the line. So if you're interested in that, click on the link below and download your free copy of How to Price for Profit today.